Greetings. Welcome back to the Morning Breadcast. I am Mark Krishik, your host with Digging for End Time Truths. And we are in the year 2025, and we have endeavored to continue on our series on the book of Jude. And Jude, just so you understand, I hope you have one of these paper copies, really do, that you can open up to the book of Jude, which is the book just before the book of Revelation. And it talks about apostate believers that get into your love feasts, or like we talked about last time, are part of the congregation and are actually clouds without water. They are trees without fruit. They are carnal Christians that lead other Christians astray with their doctrine. They could be ministers, they could be believers, they could be leaders, they could be any Christian that leads you astray, right? And book of Jude is specifically written. He says it in the very beginning of the book. He says, I was going to write to you about our common salvation, but I was compelled to write to you about contending earnestly for the faith which was once delivered to the believers. So listen, in the end times, there's going to be a lot of deceptive doctrines, a lot of things going on in life that would lead you astray. Jude is compelling us, and it's the last book before the book of Revelation, which tells us how it's all going to end. And that's not a coincidence, right? So it's important that we focus on this message. That's why I'm continuing on in this book, and we're going to cover the whole thing verse by verse. I'm not doing a deep dive. I wish I had the time to do it, but I want to do these breadcasts, and I want to get you to take a look at this book. I encourage you to read it on your own, but take a look at this book and what Jude is saying. He gives us three corporate examples of corporate groups that have gone astray, that should have been right with God, but were not and went astray. Last time we talked about three individuals that should have been right with God, but went astray and did not, right? We ended on verse 12 last time. We're going to pick it up in verse 13, where it talks about these apostate or these believers in our love feasts or in our gatherings that lead us astray. He said they are verse 13 continues and said they are raging waves of the sea, foaming up their own shame, wandering stars for whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. Okay, so this verse seems to indicate that the end result for them is just eternal separation from God. Remember, I said this last time. You can really, if you listen to believers, even though they're talking spiritual talk, is their spiritual talk talking about carnal things? Do the spiritual things that they're talking about, the scriptures, whatever they're talking about, does it lead to some kind of carnal thing? Your special blessing or your word that God is going to do great things for you or whatever. Is it leading to a carnal conclusion, or is it spiritual? Now, granted, God encourages through prophets, through prophecies, through things. He encourages us. There's no doubt. But again, and I've gone over this in other teachings, you will know by the Spirit of God in you what their fruit is. Jesus said you will know them by their fruit. So does it have a carnal aspect to it, right? I talked about that last time. Okay, so after verse 13, where it talks about the raging waves of the sea and how these carnal Christians are going to end up in the blackness of darkness forever, it goes on to verse 14, which talks about, well, we're just going to read it, but it talks about Enoch, who was the seventh from Adam, the seventh generation from Adam, which is unique in itself. And I wish I could get into it, but I can't, right? But let's read the verse. It's verse 14. It says, Now Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied about these men also, saying, Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000 of his saints. Okay? So, and let's just go to verse 15. Why is the Lord returning with 10,000s of his saints? Verse 15, to execute judgment on all, to convict all who are ungodly among them, of all their ungodly deeds which they have committed in an ungodly way, and of all the harsh things which ungodly sinners have spoken against him, spoken against Christ. So here's this judgment that is coming. But notice that he says Enoch, he quotes Enoch. Okay, so Enoch is a book that was that was read back in the ancient times. Now, it's not a part of Scripture, but I do want to say, if Jude quotes this quote from Enoch, then this part of the book is obviously Scripture because Jude is quoting it. And what does he say? Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied about these men, saying that the Lord comes with 10,000s of his saints. So I want to just stop right there. It's clear that Enoch prophesied that the Lord will return with his saints. Okay, so what does that mean? Obviously, if he's returning with them, they must be up there with him to return with him, right? I'll just leave that right there. I'm sure you know. Okay, now, so what do they do when they come? They execute judgment. Okay, he came as a lamb the first time. The second time, Jesus is coming like a lion with judgment. And this indication from Jude is that these people who have crept in unaware into your love feast and who are Christians, their final ending, if they're alive when Jesus returns, is going to be eternal judgment. And Jude is clearly saying that here, right? The end of verse 15 says they have to execute judgment on all, to convict all who are ungodly among them of all their ungodly deeds. So he's talking about these people that have crept in unaware. They're going to get judged for their ungodly deeds, right? So I want to leave it right there, but I want you to remember what we leave each teaching here, at least for this week, with: to keep your nose in the book, your knees on the ground, and your ear to the Spirit of God. And we will see you again next time on the Morning Breadcast.